today's episode, we would look at items in my collection related to uh, Herb Abrams Universal Wrestling Federation, or at very least, some of the people on the roster who I've met and gotten autographs from, and things like that. I do have all of the UWF US VHS releases, which we'll look at here in a minute. But I thought this would be a good opportunity to look at some stuff I have from people who wrestled for Herb Abrams UWF that it may not come up again anywhere else. I figured this was as good a chance or excuse as any to put all these things out there. So first, we'll take a look at some pictures that I got with some of the UWF people, and then we'll look at some of the signed pictures I got from them in the process, and then we'll look at these VHS tapes. And I really hate that I've never been able to procure I would love to get a signed picture of Herb Abrams. I figure those are hard to come by. I've never found one anywhere, so I don't know. I mean, there's got to be some that exist somewhere, but I haven't found one. So if you know of one, let me know. I might be able to do some trading with somebody to get one of those, because especially since we've spent all this time doing this, Herb Abrams podcast, and we've got a Herb Abrams group, the UWF Universe, over on Facebook. You can add that group. It's facebook.com/UWF Universe. And we've got a group there where we share the podcast and share clips and articles and different things we find related to Herb Abrams UWF. And anyway, without further ado, let's take a look here at some of the UWF related items, or at the very least, as I say, people who were a part of Herb Abrams UWF. Some of these pictures, I've actually got the physical picture here. Others are in frames on the wall. I don't want to bother taking them down or out because they were already scanned into my computer. So we'll have a combination of both here. So here is a guy who has been a staple of the UWF Fury Hour from the very beginning, Cowboy Bob Orton. And got a chance to meet him, get a picture with him. I wish I would have had my WrestleMania VHS that we looked at a couple of weeks ago with me. He would have been a great one to get his signature on there, but did not have it with me, so just got a picture instead. Here's me with B. Brian Blair, who those of you who've been watching know that he has been a big focal point of the UWF all the way through, from the first episode. Eventually, his tag team partner Jim Brunzell comes in, and initially they are called Mass Confusion. Sometimes they call them Mass Confusion. There was UWF Beach Brawl pay-per-view. They were being called one thing, and the graphics said another. But anyway, I got this signed picture of their more well-known name, the Killer Bees, which they did at one point use the name Killer Bees briefly in UWF as well. But that's pretty cool, signed by B. Brian Blair and Jumpin' Jim Brunzell. So someone else who was very prominent in the UWF, and let me see if I can find this picture real quick. Paul Mr. Wonderful Orndorff, of course, is there from day one and goes through most of it. I don't think he was on the Blackjack Brawl, but he was certainly on the Beach Brawl. But see a picture of Mr. Wonderful that I got signed at a convention in Charlotte, North Carolina. There's me and my wife with Mr. Wonderful, who at that point was rocking a big Yosemite Sam mustache. So that was a different look for Mr. Wonderful for sure. But sorry, I thought I had this stuff better organized than that. But oh, and it was on the computer as well. Someone else who's been featured prominently in the UWF, Russian Nightmare Nikita Koloff, who, as you know, in his UWF stint, it was after he had been away from wrestling a while. He'd grown his hair out and everything, but I got this picture signed the day that this picture was taken at WrestleCade. Got this picture signed, and that's the Nikita that I remember best. Jim Crockett Promotions, United States champion, fresh out of the Best of Seven series with Magnum TA, where he won the title. And now this is somebody who we haven't gotten to on the podcast yet, but eventually Jimmy Superfly Snuka would turn up in the UWF. He famously had that lumberjack match with Cactus Jack at Blackjack Brawl that would notoriously end in a double countout. But there's a picture signed by Jimmy Snuka, a picture of him in All Japan back in the day. That's probably about 81, 82, somewhere in there. So he was interesting to meet. Like I say, there's a picture with Jimmy. Another one, I didn't get to actually meet him and get this signed in person, but I got to have Bruno Sammartino, who of course is the co-host slash color commentator of the Fury Hour. I got a chance to have him on my podcast years and years ago. He was coming on promoting the re-release of his autobiography, and I didn't, like I said, I didn't get to meet him, but I got to have about a 90-minute conversation with him, and he sent me this picture. He said he really enjoyed the interviews, that it was one of the more insightful interviews he had done throughout his book tour, if you will, as far as doing interviews online. He said it seemed the most well prepared, so I was quite flattered by that and took that as quite a compliment. Now, we mentioned a moment ago Nikita Koloff. Of course, Nikita Koloff, during his brief stay in the UWF, mostly feuded with his uncle, as Herbie called him, Ivan Koloff. So, got this picture signed by Uncle Ivan Koloff. Didn't get a chance to take a picture with him, but did get that one signed, so that was pretty cool. Also, another guy who hasn't, even though his name has been mentioned a couple times on TV on the UWF, at this point where we're at in the podcast, he has not yet shown up. He's probably about 2 episodes out. But Greg the Hammer Valentine will eventually show up in UWF briefly. So I got a chance to meet him in Charlotte at the NWA Legends Convention, and got this picture signed. Of course, him in the famous hammer robe with the big arm and a hammer on the back of it. So some other people that I've got. Here's again another guy who hasn't showed up yet as far as where we're at on the UWF Fury cast, but definitely shows up in the UWF a little ways down the road. Handsome Jimmy Valiant. And got a picture of him. If I can take that off the screen, I don't know what happened there. There we go. Handsome Jimmy. That's a picture from back in the day, probably from during his Memphis time, somewhere in there. Another guy that I took a picture with at a convention, who is loosely associated with UWF. He had one match on TV that's pretty notorious. I hope to get him on the podcast to discuss it at some point. Jonathan Plombon, who I'd like to plug on this, who has his UWF book about Herb Abrams and the UWF, talks to Pondo in there. But yeah, Madman Pondo, who had, and he'll admit, because it was one of his early matches, had one of the worst TV matches in UWF history, which is really saying something, because if you've watched any of that, there's some really awful matches on UWF television. But another guy I got to meet who eventually turned up in UWF, he was a part of the first pay-per-view Beach Brawl, where he took on Ivan Koloff, is Bob Backlund. So I got to meet him in the convention. That was fun, to say the least. He's every bit the character he's depicted to be on TV. It was a lot of fun meeting him. And I got this picture signed of him wearing the WWF title. It's actually them strapping the title around him when he defeated Bret Hart in controversial fashion at the Survivor Series in, I believe it was '94, right? This is not UWF related per se, but since we mentioned him and he was a big part of the UWF, and I don't know when I would work this in again since I already showed the signed picture, is my Bruno Sammartino Coliseum video, which is another of my Coliseum video collection. We'll eventually get them all in here before it's all said and done. Speaking of Coliseum videos, I showed you a couple weeks ago my signed Ken Patera Coliseum video, so we won't break that one out again. But again, another guy who's a big part of the UWF, at least for a little while in the early goings. And there's a signed picture I have of Ken Patera as well. So, like I said, I won't pull out the Coliseum video again. He's another guy I met, but I didn't get a picture with, so I don't have a picture to show. But anyway, I've got a signed Coliseum video, signed picture, so I figure that's sufficient, right? So I think we've gone through. Oh yeah, here we go. Larry Zabisco, who on the podcast episodes just recently turned up in UWF. Got a chance to meet him in Charlotte a few years back as well. I think I don't think I pulled up. I do have a signed picture of Larry, but I don't have it here with me, and I don't think I thought to pull it off the computer. I'm not gonna make people sit here and wait while I go find it, but pretty cool picture. And then of course Don Morocco, who is just recently turned up on this Wednesday's episode 12 of the UWF Fury cast. We will be watching a match with Don Morocco and Cactus Jack, which was a pretty good match. I didn't get a chance to actually meet Morocco, so I don't have a picture with him, but I did procure this signed picture of him, which I'm pleased with because I was always a big Morocco fan, be it in the ring or part of Fuji Vice with Mr. Fuji. So let's take a look real quick at these UWF VHS releases I've got. So we've got this 2-pack, which is the steel cage match video and the best of Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff video, which there's the back. These videos are interesting. They're just, basically compilations of TV matches. So that best of Mr. Wonderful is mostly squash matches, and then a match with Dr. Death because that was his main feud in UWF. Then the steel cage match, that's what the Orndorff and Dr. Death feud built up to, was a steel cage match. And in true UWF fashion, as you know, anytime two guys compete in the UWF that aren't, where one of them is not a enhancement talent, there's going to be a screwy finish every time. There's almost always not a winner, and so it was pretty exciting that they were going to have a steel cage match between Dr. Death and Paul Orndorff. You're like, all right, well, we're finally going to have a clean, clear-cut winner in a UWF match, and wrong, there was interference, but I'll let you track that down. And by the way, all these tapes that I'm showing you here, they are all on this channel, on this YouTube channel. All of these videos are available to watch for free on the channel, so you can go look them up by the names, and you can watch all of these. Just like this one, UWF Tag Team Tandems Volume 1. Features the Power Twins, Wet and Wild, which is Steve Ray and Sonny Beach, the tag team of Cowboy Bob Orton and Cactus Jack. Wildman Jack Armstrong and Cactus Jack versus Chief Jay Strongbow and David Sammartino, which was the very first ever tag team match on UWF, which surprisingly did not take place until about 9 episodes in before we ever saw a tag match. And then you see on the cover the Blackhearts along with Luna Vachon, and of course one of the Blackhearts would go on to be Gangrel. And then of course you got the Lumberjack match, which is referring to the Lumberjack match between Dr. Death, Steve Williams, and Paul Orndorff, which was a part of their big feud there in UWF. And then this is actually a pretty good tape. It features Brian Blair against Dan Spivey, Cactus Jack against Don Morocco. So this was one of the better ones out of the bunch, if I'm being honest. And then we've got Wrestling's Greatest Champions, and there you see Dr. Death on the front with the Sports Channel television title. He was the first ever UWF Sports Channel television champion. Now listen to this lineup for Wrestling's Greatest Champions. You've got Greg the Hammer Valentine versus Sonny Blaze, which Greg Valentine did not hold a title in the UWF at any point. He wasn't a champion at the time this match was recorded. I mean, he was a great Intercontinental Champion in the WWF. He was a U.S. champion back in the day, and World Tag Team Champion, and Crockett region, and WWF Tag Team Champion Bruce Beefcake, but never in UWF. And then you got Ivan the Russian Bear Koloff versus Steve Ray, which again at this point Ivan Koloff was not a champion. Steve Ray wasn't champion. Ivan Koloff had famously been WWF champion way back in the day. The fun part about that is they advertise that it's a match featuring Ivan Koloff against Steve Ray, but both pictures are of Boris Zukov. Go figure. I guess all Russians look alike, so take that for what you will. And so that's your great champions there. And of course, I think Larry Zbyszko taking on a enhancement guy is another one of the greatest champions on that tape. Again, it's on the channel. Check it out. I know I didn't sell it very hard there, but it's something to see. And then of course, this is UWF's very first pay-per-view attempt, if you will, Beach Brawl, which featured the finals of the Sports Channel America UWF television title tournament. Dr. Death Steve Williams defeating Bam Bam Bigelow for the title, which was actually a pretty good match, and actually had a finish. So it kind of set the pay-per-view apart, because Lord knows you'd never seen a clear-cut winner on TV. So some of the matches you'll see on here: Rockin' Robin versus Kenny Devine for the women's championship, a strap match featuring Paul Orndorff against Colonel De Beers, Wet and Wild against Bob Orton and Cactus Jack, Johnny Ace versus Terry Gordy in a street fight, and Masked Confusion, which is Jumpin' Jim Ronzell, B. Brian Blair, probably better known to you as the Killer Bees, taking on the Power Twins, plus the Blackhearts have a match, plus that Bob Backlund versus Ivan Koloff match I mentioned earlier. And I may have missed a couple, but again, this one is on the YouTube channel, so check it out. So anyway, that's all of the stuff that I have that relates to people involved with Herb Abrams UWF. And go figure, the Herb Abrams UWF episode of Gene's Wrestling Collection is the longest video I've done yet, but yet I've got a lot more stuff from other people, but somehow this one took the longest. But anyway, that's the stuff in my collection that relates to Herb Abrams UWF. Again, check out the UWF Fury cast, but all the episodes are on there. And also right now there's 20 episodes of the UWF Fury Hour. We're going to have them all up eventually, but I'm going through and editing out the commercials, cleaning up the audio a little bit as best I can, and putting them on the channel. And as far as I know, that's the only place on the internet you can find them commercial free and with decent audio. So check those out as well, and please subscribe to the channel and tell other people about them, because like I say, we're putting up new content each and every day here.